Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this, what has now turned out to be a beautiful afternoon here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Matt Galuzzo. I am president and CEO with River Life. Today, I'm joined by our Riverfront project manager, Maria Riley, and our director of planning and projects, Gavin White. Some folks are going to be joining us, so there may be some distraction with folks being admitted into the room, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Just to set some table, we are really super excited to be having this conversation today about the future of a park that sits right next to us, which is Allegheny Landing, and it's being shown on the screen in front of you. 24 years ago, River Life set the vision for Pittsburgh's riverfronts, which really reoriented a region around the riverfronts as a front door. And when I joined the organization 3.5 years ago, we embarked on a process that we call completing the loop, which was really about filling the gaps in the riverfront system, but also the gaps in experience. And next slide, if we could. All of that work is really rooted in people and connecting people to exceptional places and experiences. For the first time in the organization's history, we established values that really put social equity at the top, but also high quality design and making sure that these spaces are really built and designed and programmed to belong to everyone. And so we're really proud of what we call our bedrock statements, these documents here, which, as I noted, sort of underpins everything that we do. And so as we think about this park and its sort of contribution to completing the loop, we're really mindful of these pieces. The Completing the Loop process is an APA, an AIA award winning plan. And it really talks about what we call river rooms, really the relationship between the parks and the trails and the open spaces on either sides of our three rivers, the water itself, and then the connections, the bridges. And Allegheny Landing is a perfect example of that. And so I'm going to hand it over to Gavin to really dive into details, but we are incredibly grateful that you're interested in our work and the potential here at Allegheny Landing. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Matt. One just order of business, if we could, it'd be great to get to know who all's in the room. There's a lot of you here today, which we're thrilled about. So probably don't have time to go around the table, but if you could put your name and your firm and maybe where you're located in the chat, we'd appreciate that. And just picking up from where Matt left off, he mentioned these river rooms. We're really focused on that whole loop that you just saw on the previous map, but in particular on a couple of areas here around downtown Pittsburgh. One at the bottom of the screen here around West End Bridge is a little less advanced in its planning. We're still working towards efforts to complete that section of the loop and doing some engineering feasibility work at the moment to think about connecting up onto the bridge and across and thinking about landings on either side. But then at the top here is really where we're ready to move, and that's on the Allegheny River between these sister bridges and thinking about both Allegheny Riverfront Park, which was Michael Van Valkenburg Associates designed landscape that we're working to restore with their help now, and the park that we'll be talking about today, Allegheny Landing. And just to zoom in a little bit on the Sister Bridges experience is what we're calling it here, and you can read a little bit about it in the RFP. We really think that this is sort of the premier river room in the city of Pittsburgh and among cities in the entire country. It's a really exciting space between two arts districts in the city of Pittsburgh, one that is well established, the cultural district, and then one that is emerging, Andy Warhol and their initiative called the Pop District. Between them, we have what are incredible, pieces of civic infrastructure in the sister bridges, which are named after Roberto Clemente, Andy Warhol, and Rachel Carson. So they're sort of featuring the trifecta of sports, arts, and nature, which we know are so essential to public spaces, broadly speaking. And they're really an icon for the city of Pittsburgh and for river cities across the country. So the cultural district is home to 7 different sort of major destination theaters. It's a lively sort of nightlife scene and is sort of the arts heart of downtown Pittsburgh. And it's just across the Allegheny from what the Warhol is calling the pop district, which is meant to be a sort of new quirky sister to the cultural district. They're working on a new venue and really augmenting the public realm around the Andy Warhol Museum, which is in its own right a premier arts destination. So this is all really fertile ground, we think, for what is a really exciting public space that we're thrilled to talk with you about with you today.
So I'm going to take over and start talking about the history of the site. This is a picture of the Penn Cotton Mill, which was mentioned in the RFP. Next slide, please. Next slide.
It's good.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay, sorry. So in 1872, the Penn Cotton Mill was established. It's sort of surrounded by some housing, but the riverfront is really kind of undeveloped except for the mill. In 1890, you see some more sort of warehouse type, industrial type spaces. The railroad has shown up. By 1906, the cotton mill has turned into storage. It's very industrial, still a lot of residential. And then by 1939, the building has come down. There's still residential, but and it looks like the railroad has sort of disappeared a little bit. You know, is defunct at this point. 1957, another industrial type building, but the residential has come down. So really this area has become largely business oriented. Post 1971, you can see basically no residential, railroad is gone. This image is helpful to show the sort of topographical drop from the 6th Street Bridge on the left down to the waterfront. So basically, it's a lot of parking, a huge drop, mostly business oriented. So prior to 1950, this was sort of what the city of Pittsburgh looked like. The waterfronts were really completely occupied by the steel mills. In 1948, there was an inversion that happened, and in Denora, thank you, that killed 20 people. And around that time, Pittsburgh started enforcing sort of smog laws. The picture on the right was taken at 10:35 a.m. So you can see what the city was like prior to, restoration or, the completion or implementation of these laws. The photo on the left really shows what the riverfronts were. They were really fully occupied by mills, industry, so not a destination, not anywhere that you would go for occupation other than if you worked there. They were parking lots essentially, and if they weren't mills, they were parking lots. Until Point State Park came along. This was one of the first places in the city that said, let's celebrate the river. Let's bring people down to the river. This is a pedestrian space to celebrate the city and the water. And in 2013, River Life led a $40 million effort to restore the fountain and the park. And then we get to Allegheny Landing, which is just a little bit up the Allegheny from the point. This is a picture taken in the 1980s, I believe, which is very manicured, very corporate feeling. Yeah, the buildings behind it are the building on the left is the building we're sitting in right now. So this was really a sculpture park that was part of a business park in a strange way. So this is looking at the park today, basically. You can go to the next slide. Sure. So the red outline is the project limit. So the upper plaza, it contains the upper plaza, the lower park, and then a little piece under the 6th Street Bridge, the 6th Street underpass. Basically, this map locates all the artwork. So there was a fountain there that River Life removed because it was, again, defunct. The Piazza Lavoro and Mythic Source, which are part of the same project, they're related to each other. The Pittsburgh Variations on the right, and then the Forks and the Builders on the left. We just finished work on the public dock. Like a month ago, we finished restoring that, and the North Shore Trail along the south edge connects to the rest, connects to the loop that we were talking about previously. And one of the things about this park is that it really was an isolated space prior to the installation of this trail. And so that insertion of the walking and biking trail really changes the nature of the whole park.
And I'll just note that was that further reinforced with the advent of PNC Park, which is right next to this site. So you've got this, this new sort of trail amenity, as well as within the last 20 years, a 40,000 person ballpark.
So we're just going to go through some existing conditions photographs to give you a sense of what's out there. The top left is sort of looking into the park from the main entrance on the upper plaza. The fountain, where the footprint of the fountain right now is gravel, and it floods, as you can see, making it hard. It takes up a huge footprint, a huge area in the plaza, and is not necessarily accessible. Lighting is old and sad. The trees are actually one of the best parts of this park and provide really loved and needed shade in this area. We've had tables and chairs out in the plaza during the summer, and they always get moved into the shade of the trees. A couple images of the Piazza Lavoro. And then the lower park, dominated by lawn. It gets really soggy every time it rains. No one really sits out here. Some of the artwork is the workers on the lower left. You can see that the Ned Smythe's Mythic Source is right down at the water, right at, it intersects with the walking trail. This part of the park is not considered accessible. It's strange because it almost feels like it is, but it's really not legally. That's something that we're very interested in trying to remedy. And then you can see our beautiful new dock on the bottom right. We're so proud of it. Talking about the landscape, there are these huge U's that really divide the two spaces, both physically and visually. When you're in the plaza, you can't see the river. It is our assumption that these will come out, basically because we really are about connection to the river and sort of lateral connections to the river. The trees, again, are a major asset in the park. We worked on installing a rain garden a few years ago, and unfortunately it failed due to the geese, the Canada geese, which ate every plant down to the ground, basically. And then, sort of lack of care taken by someone who drove through our rain garden. The other thing is the riparian edge, which is to the east of the dock. If you saw on that the 1980s photograph, it was riprap and willow trees and very manicured, and it is now really overgrown with invasives, and it collects trash and is something that could be included in this project, either restoration or new use. So looking at the art, we've talked about Piazza Lavoro and Mythic Source, both by Ned Smythe. Pittsburgh Variations by George Sugarman, and then The Forks by Isaac Wickens. The art in this park was chosen specifically to honor labor in the city. And I think that, as part of moving forward and the installation of new art, we probably would want to honor that, that narrative. The art itself, some of it has to stay exactly where it is. The Piazza Lavoro has to stay. It can't, and Pittsburgh, and not the variations, the source, those have to stay. We recently reinstalled all of the tile work on grade in Piazza Lavoro, and it would be just too much to move those. The Pittsburgh Variations needs to stay in its current configuration. However, we've looked at shifting the whole sculpture if it helps with ADA access into the lower park. And then the Forks, its current location is sort of can block flow depending on what happens with the future design, and there's a possibility that that sculpture can move. So the opportunities that we see in the park, right now, the trail, which is the purple line going under the 6th Street Bridge, comes to, you take a right turn basically to get from PNC Park into Allegheny Landing. It is a really dangerous spot because bikers come through and pedestrians are walking under the bridge, and there's no sort of guidance on who goes where. One of the things that we're thinking about is the possibility of expanding the trail to the other side of the pier, and we have pictures of this in a minute, to make the actual trail visible, first of all, which would make it much safer, but then also transforming the underside of the existing trail, which is on the right-hand side on the top photo, into an amenity of some sort. So if it's maybe a restroom, maybe it's a ice cream shop or something like that. What we're interested in for the sake of this project is sort of thinking about the flow and possible footprints that could go on the right-hand side. But you don't need to design any buildings or anything like that. It's really more about the landscape and the movement of people and bikes through that space. One of the other elements that we're considering is, since this is a sculpture park, there are limited places for kids on the North Shore. So is it possible that we can create a sculpture that is also playful, that people can climb, interact with, but really make it something that's very sculptural, so it fits in with the rest of the park. And then the major architectural piece is a stage of some sort, pavilion or a stage of some sort. They can be permanent, they can be temporary. If they're permanent, depending on the location, we need to understand that these are businesses on the upper plaza level. Therefore, we're sitting right here, looking out at the park. We don't want to look at the back of the building. The other thing is that the Warhol uses this plaza for a major festival that they do, music festival. So they take their music seriously. So whatever stage structure goes in should consider the sound quality and the sort of back of stage needs for musicians and for this festival. But really, we would love this piece to be sculptural in and of itself if it stays, even if it's something that's temporary, like the bottom right can be taken down. It's a temporary installation. If you design something that is not permanently there, it should be have a small footprint for storage, because we don't have that much space. So that's something to take into consideration. So this was the master plan that La Quattrobonsi completed, and they did a lot of work, as I'm sure you saw in the RFP, they did a lot of work thinking about the geometries originally intended in the park, how those can relate to this new enhanced use of both the plaza and the lower park. We really appreciate this plan. We are also not adverse to other big moves happening. We really want you to look at this plan to sort of absorb the lessons that they learned, to really think about the original intentions, but we don't want to stifle creativity in this next phase moving forward in the development of this new plan. And then this was the rendering of that site plan. One of the issues, oh yeah, go ahead. It's fine.
Well, oh, I jumped ahead. There we go.
One of the issues with the plan is that with these geometries, you are not able to achieve ADA access legally, legal ADA access. So that's something that for us is very important, and so might force the change of the geometry a bit. And one thing that we mentioned in the RFP, community engagement is essential to us and to this process. We talked about the installation of a shipping container, which has been used throughout the city by our friends at the Office of Public Art, thank you, at the Office of Public Art. And we're planning to use this for engagement on this project as well. Part of your task as the consultant is to help design the interior of this space to facilitate facilitate information gathering, basically, from people just wandering on the street, people coming into the plaza for lunch. So this is something that we would work with you on. It's something that is meant to be regularly engaged with. So this is something to really think about and grapple with as when you're responding to the RFP. And then the nitty-gritty stuff also included in the RFP. So the deadline for questions is tomorrow at 5 p.m. We will respond to those questions by Tuesday, the 7th at 5 p.m. and we'll post those on our website, the website that was included in the RFP. The deadline for this proposal is Friday, March 24th at 5 p.m. and you can submit either hard copies by mailing them to us or via email. The team requirements are landscape architect, civil site engineer, surveyor, cost estimator. Some other possible team members are an artist or creative consultant. We really recognize that there are a lot of creative spaces have come not necessarily with landscape architects or architects as the prime. And so we're encouraging artists to feel free to put a team together as long as the required team members are included. A community engagement specialist, again, as we've said, that this is really crucial to us. So if the team does not feel that they internally have the ability to facilitate a really robust engagement strategy, then feel free to bring on a consultant, not necessary. And again, lead sites certified practitioner. We are not planning to pursue certification. However, we really would like to incorporate the goals and strategies within the design. We're hoping that contract execution will be by Friday, May 5th. The budget is $3.6 million. As we said in the RFP, we don't want the budget to necessarily limit creativity on this project. The $3.6 million has to give a complete park. However, there are things that could be phased in at later dates based on fundraising efforts, but we do want whatever the first phase is to be a sort of a complete package. And the expected timeline is 24 months with an additional 6-month extension if necessary. So with that, I think we wanted to open up to questions, and I guess the best way, maybe, I mean, should we do it via chat or?
I think there's few enough here. If we wanted to maybe raise hands, we can try and call on folks, or if you do have a question in the chat, we can open that up as well.
Hey, everybody. This is Nina Chase. Good to see you. I had one question. Thank you for all the background info. I had one question about the buildings. Are the buildings on the two sides of the park anticipated to remain as they are today?
Yeah,
Yes.
for the foreseeable future, that's certainly the case. You know, it's possible in the long distant future that that's not going to be the case, but for now, we're planning for them to remain.
And just for historical context, the first floor of one of the buildings originally had a restaurant use. Bonus points for anybody who knows the name of the restaurant. It was called Figgins Restaurant. But the plan for that building owner is not to reopen that space as a sort of public interface.
Thanks. That's good background, just understanding the first floor context. Thanks.
Other questions? Thomas, were you raising your hand there?
All right, Garrett. Thanks. Just a question, and I haven't delved too much deeper into this, but what is the fluctuation of the river level that would be of interest to us?
Good question. So the river is pretty strictly controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers. There are a number of locks and dams up above this site, though they do controlled releases as necessary to maintain the entire system, which will lead to siltation on the dock. The dock may flood, the flood may exceed that level. It is possible in extreme events, above 50-year floods, I believe, for it to reach up to the trail, though I have not personally seen that happen. There's a pretty considerable wall between that dock and the trail. Though for the riparian area and for the area below 6th Street Bridge, that may well be a consideration of sort of regular flooding, maybe a few times a year.
Thank you.
We were that thorough? Wow.
Come on, there must be something else.
Nina definitely has another question.
I had one, but it related to budget for design fees. I know you mentioned the budget for the construction fee. I didn't know if you were if you had a set budget for design fees yet, or if that's something that you're looking. I know it's part of the RFP response, but if you had a
we don't have a set budget. I think we're mindful of sort of standard construction to design costs, but also of the fact that we're thinking a little bit more expansively about design. So, we'll take that into consideration as we consider the proposals.
That's great.
All right.
Sorry.
Elizabeth, please go.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask a question about possible additional sculpture. In other words, the sculptures that are out there, we are working with and around. Is there a potential for additional sculptures in the future such that we might consider, either temporary or new permanent exhibits out there?
Yeah, I think our goal is that this park will be used to feature other voices. Right now, it's a very sort of monolithic voice in the park, and I think that we would like to change that definitely we would like to keep the narrative going about labor, but we do foresee that this park could handle some additional artwork. Additionally, we have a program called Art Walk, which has several art pieces that stretch up the Allegheny on the south side currently, and we're hoping to bring that onto the north side as well. So yes, the additional artwork could fit both in the park and also within our Art Walk programming.
And just to highlight that the pieces that are in the park currently are part of the Carnegie Museum of Art's permanent collection. They maintain that collection. So I would think any, and of course the Warhol Museum, which is right here, is part of the museum system. And so I think sort of interorganizational collaboration is an opportunity as we think about the future of art in this space.
Great, thanks.
Sure. Thomas, you had another
Yeah,
question.
I think, and again, forgive me if there's a section in the RFP that covers this, but the first thought, of course, is the team going to build its fee, its estimate of the amount of work entailed here on this park budget, or are you in fact hoping and expecting the team to really be more aspirational about the park and their design approach and the possibilities?
Yeah, I think what we can say there is that certainly in the conceptual phase, we mentioned a number of things that we'd like to sort of see aspirationally that may not be able to proceed into design development. So from that perspective, I think there's a moment that we really want to be full of creativity. We may then hone in on what matches the construction budget from there, or we may find that we're able to be really successful in fundraising in the course of that process, and we want to continue with those elements as well. But at least at that beginning phase, there's opportunity to think bigger.
Good, that's encouraging. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carolyn. I have a slightly different angle on the question, if I may. And that is, are the funding sources that are secured for the 3.6 ones that are going to shape the manner in which how like rates are established and or specifications that are going to for construction that are going to need to be fulfilled?
It's a good question. The answer is not yet, though we regularly go after public sources that will require things like prevailing wage, like MWDBE requirements, local steel, et cetera, right? So there's a high likelihood that there will be some requirements built in based on funding sources, though they're not exorbitant in any kind of way, I would say.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
I had another question about the like first phase projects. Does the pavilion, the architectural element, does that fall into your understanding of what would need to happen in a first phase within that initial budget?
I think that we hope that it can. And at very least, the siting for that element, for the playscape elements, needs to be incorporated into the basic design, though we could have conversation about what all that covers. But we want it to be integrated, right? So at the very least, knowing its placement and general outline will be important.
Okay, that's helpful.
This is Alex McKay with GGN. Just had a quick question on the architectural component for the teaming. If that type of component is something we believe we can handle in-house, design ourselves, and with our structural engineer, is that an acceptable alteration to the teaming?
I think if the team includes a structural engineer and an architect, or you feel that you can meet that need with a landscape architect and a structural engineer, then yeah, we'd be happy to contemplate that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Kelly Wrench from Burger Partnership in Seattle. Just, I guess, a housekeeping question. Will this presentation be available to those of us who registered?
Yes, this presentation will be up on the website today.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Last call. Okay. Take some.
Well, we're really excited about this process. I think the location here, it's not a big park, but it really is in a special place. It is a hugely important place for Pittsburghers to come and take snapshots, and we see prom dresses and wedding dresses here all the time. It's a place where people come visit. The Warhol Museum is a huge destination. PNC Park. I mean, you're going to see millions of people coming through this park every year. And we're super excited about the opportunity to make it part of this bigger Sister Bridges experience, about it really sort of setting the stage for the next iteration of our work here on the rivers and for riverfronts in Pittsburgh and beyond as well. So we really hope you're excited and submit a proposal that we really look forward to reviewing.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's great seeing you.
Thank you.